Get ready for the most action-packed role-playing game of the modern era. Inspired by your favorite action movies, Everyday Heroes makes you the star of your own pulse-pounding adventure. Leap out of windows, get in a car chase, and save the world at the last second, all while looking damn good doing it. Created by some of the original designers of D20 Modern, Everyday Heroes provides everything you need to run a modern-day campaign with a 5e-compatible, easy-to-learn rule set. The core rulebook comes equipped with a host of modern character options. Get up close and personal with the MMA fighter, break into the system with the hacker, or uncover any mystery with the sleuth. With 20 classes, 25 backgrounds, and 30 professions, Everyday Heroes gives you the tools to create your own unique action hero. But that's not all. Everyday Heroes gives GMs a toolbox bursting with options, with custom rules for car chases and gunfights, along with an armory of equipment and an updated wealth system that breaks away from counting every coin. The best part is that Everyday Heroes can be played in almost any genre, from horror to sci-fi and everything in between. And later this year, Everyday Heroes will be releasing cinematic adventures based on your favorite films, with custom rules, new classes, and adventures for each one. So what are you waiting for? Answer the call and become...
And I nearly timed that perfectly. It was like, what are you waiting for? And it should have been, it struck my lightning. Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is Band of Badgers. I'm Dave. That's Steve. We have Bryan and Sigfried from Evil Genius Games with us to take all of your, well, not to take your questions, to answer your questions, not to take your questions. They won't go anywhere. So do go and, yeah, you can. Bring them on strong, and we will knock them out the park. Bring on your questions. What was that, Steve?
I said make them grow.
Make them grow. Not sure what you mean by that.
Put them in my little question garden and turn
them
into evil monsters.
So anything you have, do shout it out. Keep those comments coming. We want to see all the bits and pieces from you. Whatever you're interested in, let us know. But we're going to start with Sigfried as the lead game designer for the topic we're going to be talking about. First of all, is just a little bit about yourself, Sigfried and Bryan. And a little bit about how and when you joined Evil Genius Games and all the cool things coming your way. So, Sigfried, the stage is yours for now. Go for it.
Okay. Let's see. So I'm Sigfried Trent, a lead game designer for Evil Genius Games. So I review products, make sure that all the rules line up with kind of the original vision that I set up for the game. Myself and my writing partner, Chris Goober Ramsley, wrote the core rulebook together, and then we divvied up all the cinematic adventures, and along with some adventure writers that were pulled into the team, we put all those together. So that's my role at Evil Genius Games. I started in, I want to say it's 2022, but it might have been the very beginning. I think I think about these years. Yeah, so actually, just at the beginning of 2022 is when I started with Evil Genius Games. And I had been recovering from leukemia, and I was living in the basement of Jeff Grubb, which I was living upstairs, but hanging out in the basement a lot, which is great because he's got this big library of all his old games. Jeff, for people who don't know, is one of the original people who worked on Forgotten Realms. He did the Marvel superhero game for TSR. And so he's a real gaming legend and luminary. And it's a privilege to hang out in his basement because it's full of great products and games to peruse through. It's lovely. So I was there.
That's the kind of thing we want to see, like the documentary of that one. We want to go. We want to visit that. That'd be great.
It would be cool. I don't know if Kate, his wife, would let you into their basement with a camera, but yeah, it is great, and it would be wonderful, and they're wonderful people. And so I had leukemia, and they put me up in their house because I had just returned to America from Japan, and it was a strange time, and so they're wonderful friends. And they were taking very good care of me. And I had just kind of around the time that we're talking about was fully recovered and in remission and doing pretty good and looking for things to do, looking for work. Yeah. And Jeff got a call from David Scott, who is the owner of Evil Genius Games. And he wanted Jeff to work on Everyday Heroes because it is a spiritual successor to D20 Modern. Dave's vision was, hey, I want to make a game about modern action movies. I love D20 Modern, so I want it to be kind of in that frame. So he reached out to all the original designers. Well, Jeff is working in video games these days and wasn't necessarily interested. He was willing to help, and he did help with the project a little bit, giving kind of sage advice. And he also said, hey, I don't have time to write a game, but there's a guy in my basement who might be able to help you.
A guy in the basement sounds a bit mysterious.
Yeah, it is a bit mysterious. Now, I've worked in the past for Wolfgang Bauer at Kobold Press.
Yeah,
I was my wife and I were Kobold Minions 1 and 2 once upon a time. I didn't do a lot of writing for him because I was a software engineer. I didn't have time to do it full time. You tend to make a lot more money in software engineering than you do in tabletop game design. But we make choices in life. And when I was finished with leukemia, I was ready to do something fun instead of lucrative, right? So when Dave said, hey, do you think you might be able to make a role-playing game? I was like, you try to stop me, pal. Right? I think I am ready to rock and roll. I've got 30 years of playing games and having ideas. And I love, he wanted to do 5th edition because that's kind of the most popular system at the time. I love D&D. That's how I got into the hobby, and I played it all my life. So I know that rule system in and out. And I was ready to rock and roll. Yeah. So I set to work. He wanted a chase mechanic. So he found Goober, who's my writer partner, Chris Ramsley. And Goober, which is what he likes to be called, what they like to be called. So Goober had a chase system out on DM's Guild, and it was very highly rated. So they were brought in, and we worked together and put together the core rule book in 3 or 4 months. So we were just going hard at it, right? Cranking away because it's a huge book. But it was incredibly fun. And David always had the idea of those cinematic adventures, and then he landed all those deals to get the licenses. We can talk about that later. And then we're off to the races on those, and it all just kind of built up from there. So I was sort of Evil Genius's first person on the team, and have been there ever since.
How just out of interest, how big is the team now?
I don't know. It's all freelancers. So pretty much everybody at Evil Genius Games is a freelancer. And so, we've got a spreadsheet of about 50 or so people, but, kind of comes and goes. There's a core of about 8 to 12. I'm not sure. I lose track. That
sounds about right.
Yeah. And it comes and goes, right? So people, it's fairly fluid, although there's a few of us who've been around for a long time. And some people like Bryan in the producer role who are really kind of key and I work with all the time.
Cool. So Bryan, we got you mentioned there. Let's put you in the center spotlight. Let's hear from you.
Nice segue.
Yeah, exactly. I keep pushing the wrong button. There we go. Boom. So, a little bit of background from you, if you would, please.
I came on to Evil Genius almost exactly a year ago. It was around February where Dave started poking me about talking about doing some sci-fi stuff. Originally, I just came on to do some adventure writing. I've been in the industry since the early 2000s. He grabbed me at a moment where I had a space between a couple of contracts. I was doing a lot of Hasbro work with Renegade. I did all, was part of the team that created the Essence 20 system for Power Rangers and Transformers and G.I. Joe. And My Little Pony. I always forget them. They were coming out as I was leaving. But
we have one of the badges is a brony.
Oh, awesome.
And absolutely loves the ponies. Okay.
That's fantastic. So we had started to kind of not dry up on the titles that I was working on, but like things were, the contracts were starting to get a little farther and farther apart over there at Renegade. And a friend of mine who I had a taco with at GameholeCon reached out and said, hey, this little company called Evil Genius is looking for some adventure work. They could probably use you. And I jumped on and I just did a little convention adventure for Total Recall initially. And about 2/3 of the way through writing that, Dave called me up and was like, hey, I've been looking at the rest of your stuff that you've done. And you've done a lot of stuff. I've got this other thing that I'd like you to be a part of. Do you mind signing some NDAs and getting started? And that ended up being a big sci-fi gig that it got me ingrained in the company. And a few months later, he asked me to come on and start trying to orchestrate sci-fi stuff. And the rest is history. Now I'm here and I'm enjoying putting out interesting things. I've always loved working with licenses. From way back in my days at Mongoose in the, I spent 6 years at Mongoose. I saw the eyes there. I worked with Conan and Starship Troopers and Babylon 5. And so I've been doing licensing stuff for almost 20 years. And so getting to play with some of these has been, it's been a treat. I love getting a chance to, put my fingerprints on the worlds that have helped shape my imagination, over my adult life.
Fantastic. There's a certain amount with everyone here as well. So with you both been in here now, we've got the introductions out of the way with Evil Genius. I'll come back to Everyday Heroes, but we've all mentioned a few of the movie titles. Total Recall. What is it like when you get to work on some of these movie licenses? As you say, this is stuff that we grew up with. This is sci-fi, fantasy, fiction at its best on the big screen. And it's a hit in these worlds.
It's nostalgia, really, isn't it? Everything is there.
There's a lot of nostalgia. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I'll say, are these at their best? I don't know. I'm often a believer that over time, every artistic endeavor kind of builds over time and gets better and learns. So when I was a kid, TV was pretty terrible. The TV is pretty amazing now, right? I mean, the quality of television shows is incredible compared to what it used to be. Yet, we still have nostalgia for the A-Team and Knight Rider and these things, right? But really, when you look at the technical quality of these shows, they're not that strong, right? So a lot of these movies, I think, are really important movies because they shifted the sea change, or they really had an impact on our imaginations. Craft of movie wise, some of them show their age a little bit when you go back and watch them. Let's say maybe Universal Soldier, but they're iconic films, right? And they're important films in fandom, especially American fandom. So it's really a privilege to get to work on them, in my opinion, because I was a fan of them as a kid. I never thought I would get to write the canonical Highlander game. Not something I ever thought I would have the opportunity to do. So it was like being handed a treasure from the British Museum and going, here, clean this up. And you're like, oh man, okay, I better do a good job. So I really approach each of the ones that I've worked on with a great deal of reverence. I try to really, even if with Rambo, I had not actually seen the movies before I picked it up. So I become a fan of whatever it is. I dive in deep. And even if there's some things that are not for me, I'm going to still dig in there and find the parts I like and what resonates and read what other fans like and really just bury myself in the fandom of whatever it is. So that, I'm writing for fans, so I want to be a fan. And that's kind of my attitude when I come in.
There's definitely a lot of that. I mean, again, the stuff, when I mentioned with this, is the stuff that we grew up with. It's the stuff that... that was a while ago now, and those people who grew up with it, who then work into TV and film, they get to shape that, and that's one of the things. I mean, I worked in comic industry for 20 years, and the people who, when we were kids growing up, those stories we read, those are now films now, and it's always we'd be reading those books or stories or playing games and saying, what if this was a movie? This would be incredible, and those stories. With the power of what we have in the cinema now is just incredible. To think that Highlander is such a small film, the first film, it's such a small film. You've got Sean Connery as an Egyptian Spaniard, which is just crazy. But we didn't care. It was this Scottish Highlander with a sword in modern day America, chopping heads off. To a fantastic soundtrack that everyone had the album of, and it's ingrained in us as we grow up. It is.
Yeah, and I think we really were looking, for iconic films, right?
Yeah.
Touchstones that people can really resonate with. But that also means you have to be really careful. For me, the great privilege was Escape from New York because it doesn't have a lot of lore. There's a lot of Highlander stuff out there. Cartoon, there's lots of comic books, novelizations. Escape from New York has very little. There's a novelization of the movie. There's a couple comic books that are very far afield, to be honest, from the film's content. And there's just very little about that world. And I actually got to do a lot of original world building for the Escape from New York world and make it canonical information. And that is an incredible privilege, especially being a big John Carpenter fan and a big Kurt Russell fan. Like, to be able to touch that world and leave my own impact on it, that's pretty incredible. So I got to make gangs for New York City and create a whole timeline of like how New York becomes like that makes sense. And I feel incredibly lucky. So
is there a particular film or maybe even TV show that you would want to convert to Everyday Heroes? What would be your pick if you were given the choice?
Go first, Bryan.
Wow, that's a deep question because I would break it. I'm a giant cinephile. I watch movies constantly, and it's so anytime someone would be like, "What would you want to do?" I'm like, "Well, are you meaning cartoons, or is it a kid game? Is it a horror game, action game, future game?" Well, let's break it into
give me a
little
genre first.
Yeah, let's cut it down a little bit. But I think for Everyday Heroes, if somebody were to just go, pick something, I know that it's almost kind of, you can do it now. There's a couple of streams out there that are doing it. I would love to be able to play with the John Wick world.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
There is a lot of really good scenery to chew in those movies. Yeah. And I would love to gamify what the coins do, come up with an actual system for markers, like force players to do things.
Yeah.
You
mentioned about the coins. That'd be great, actually, because you could. Again, we've met so many people who are coin manufacturers, and then say, here it is, and then you get your coin to keep. Like, yes, that'd be a fantastic artifact to have.
Yeah, I would love to get to play in that. But my absolute dream, if whether it's Everyday Heroes or otherwise, would be Silverhawks, the cartoon.
Oh yeah,
it's my ringtone. I have a ridiculous hope that one day I will get the Silverhawks theme, or get the Silverhawks license in some capacity.
That one's got to be tangled up. That's going to be a tough one.
It's a mess. The Thundercats reboot created one of the artists created a tangent to it, or created a connection to it that he wasn't allowed to. He put it in as an Easter egg, and they basically were like, "Go get," but it made it through for the actual release, and so now they're connected. And I love Thundercats too. I'm just a giant kid. I'm just a child.
I liked the Thundercats reboot. Going off the tangent, I liked the Thundercats reboot. It was really good, and then it just stopped. I don't know. If the first series, and that was it. Dead. It's so disappointed.
Sad. Yeah, those were pretty good cartoons. I love those when I was a kid.
When we were talking about the films, I had my list. I was writing my list. There we go. Warriors, Enter the Dragon, and Matrix. Matrix because it was a little more recent, even though not that recent. But yeah, Warriors, Enter the Dragon. You go to an island because my boy he's 9 years old now, but he's got Ninjago Lego, and if you watch the Ninjago cartoon series, there's a whole series based on Enter the Dragon. They go to a mysterious island. They have to battle each other with all these ninja powers. They do a Lego. It's like Enter the Dragon, boys. Enter the Dragon. I'm sitting there watching it with him. This is great. This is amazing. But
I've got a little story about Warriors because I wrote a pitch for it. Yeah, I've written pitches for a lot of properties that we didn't do. Some because we don't get them. We actually had the opportunity to do Warriors, but Escape from New York was really close in themes. And when we were setting the cinematic adventures, we were trying to pick different genres, subgenres of action films. And Warriors and Escape from New York were pretty close in many respects. They're set in New York, for starters. They're about gang-infested areas. They just have a little bit different setting in that post-apocalypse for Escape from New York as where sort of modern crime for Warriors, right? So they were really close, so we went with Escape from New York because I had a little bit more world-building opportunities. But I took pains because they come from the same source material, which are the Brooklyn and Bronx gangs of New York City in the 1970s and 80s, right? They're drawing from the same element and idea of a city gone wild. There was a lot of press about these gangs. So I did a lot of real world research on the basis of those gangs, how they work, and I worked that into Escape from New York. So there's a lot of authentic elements about how those gangs worked and their culture. And so a lot of the material in Escape from New York you can use to play Warriors. Just remove the post-apocalypse part and set it in modern New York. And you've got a lot of great gangs are in there. They're thematic. I took little ideas from Warriors and put them in there. If you look at the adventure suggestions, a couple of those are, one of them is very much the plot of the Warriors. And another one is actually the pitch that I did for a Warriors adventure, which is based on a different Greek classic. Many people don't know, but the story of the Warriors is based on, I'm going to forget which Greek story, but it's Odysseus or one of them. I forget exactly which one. And so this was one that was a journey into the underworld. So they were going down into the sewers of New York and finding a mysterious civilization that's down there. So based on another classic Greek story. Anyway, so that's my Warrior story.
We mentioned the Everyday Heroes book. Let's see if I can bring it up on screen here. So if for those of you who haven't seen it, this is what it is. Go to evilgeniusgames.com. You can find it there. Also, if for those of you who are in the UK, if you go to the UK Games Expo, I believe you're all got well, Evil Genius is coming back this year because you were here for 2023. You're coming back for 2024.
I believe so.
That is the plan, yeah.
Cool.
And the best stand in the Games Expo as well. I recall your ladder racking, the lighting. It was very studio-esque.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah,
it was a one-off, right? We only used that at UK Games Expo. It was pretty awesome.
And this book is huge. I mean, so here's the sell. For those of you who are watching live, if you wait until the weekend, this interview will go up on YouTube at the weekend, but so will a flick through and review of the book itself, plus something else we got, but we'll announce that in a bit. Secret surprises. But this book, not only is it huge, it's 400 pages, but don't let that put you off, because as I was saying before we went on air, I haven't read it cover to cover, but the bits I've jumped into, it is such an easy read. The stuff here is really easy to pick up. It's really, really simple. And one of the good things I want to pick up on is that when you read a new book, and everyone's a bit, oh, do I want to pick up something? I'm used to D&D, I'm used to Pathfinder. This is 5e, so you're going to be familiar with it anyway, but there's loads of new terms, which are going to be stuff you've seen in films and movies. And this is modern day, so it's stuff that you're going to know just from being out in the real wide world, or the really real world, as we like to say in The Crow. But they have an example of this. This is like a scenario of play, and it's one paragraph. Now, in other books, I've seen that to be an entire half a page or a whole page. This is how quick and easy it is to assimilate all the information that you need. It's really, really well done. It's beautifully constructed. It is a joy to read. So that is my pitch, but you'll see a proper review of this over the weekend. So do go and check it out. If you're watching us now on YouTube, thank you very much. Go check it out. It's worth it. There's no price on this on the back, but it is worth it. So
thanks for the kind words. Yeah, one of the design philosophies I have, because this was my one big shot to make my own game, right? So yeah, I had a lot of things I wanted to do, and fortunately I had a lot of freedom to make those choices. And one of the things is I like to pack in the information, right? Like if I can say the same thing in less sentences, I'm going to say it in less sentences. So there's more stuff in the book, right? Now, I'm blessed that Dave did not give me a limit. He's like, write as many pages as you need to. That's manna from heaven. Maybe that doesn't happen very much, right? That's not how this works usually. So I'm like, ooh, great. We're putting everything in here, right? Like, and there's probably a few things in there that don't really need to be in there, but to have all the little extra bells and whistles, and it's like you're rummaging around in the trunk and you're like, rules for this. Wow, that's pretty cool. What's this? So good. Oh, neat. Yeah.
Because when we talk about all those films, and you want to pack all those different things. So in this book, there's also monsters and stats and everything else. But there are zombies. There's vampires. I'm a big fan of undead zombies. But then you've got evil robots. You've got evil aliens. You've got time-traveling beasts. You've got police, assassins, punks, thugs. They're all in this book. And it is incredible for you to make your own story. Is really, really easy to do. But the fact you've also got, and I'll bring it up on screen now, a selection of these movie tie-ins. Let's whack this up on screen if we can. There we go.
Oh.
Just, and that's not all of them. That's just a few to make it look nice on screen. But these are, look at the different stories we got. We got Highlander, yeah, okay, modern day fantasy. We've got Rambo, all the guns. I mean, you got Rambo, and then you got something like Pacific Rim. How different can these be? But how fun are they to play? You know, if you want to get into a giant mech suit and fight giant monsters, you can. If you want to go to Skull Island and meet King Kong, you can. There's Escape from New York we mentioned earlier. There's The Crow. I mean, these are incredible narrative stories that have these mixed adventures in. And coming back to Kong, Kong is massive at the moment with the Godzillas, Kong versus Godzilla. We just had the new trailer release fairly recently. Comes out later this year. We've got Monarch on Apple TV at the moment. If you like all that stuff, and as you say, this has these stories have a wealth of history, but also future history. You can make new stories. Don't hold yourself back. Just go for it and jump straight in.
Yep, and all the rules on all these games. Well, these are expansions to the, just so people understand, expansions to the core Everyday Hero system, right? So you need the core rule book to play those other adventures. But all the rules and all of those are designed to work together, not thematically necessarily. So, you know, Pacific Rim doesn't go really well with Escape to New York in a thematic sense. But as far as the rules are concerned, you can absolutely mix and match everything. So we take great pains to make sure that's possible and that characters in all these settings are balanced. So you can play an immortal warrior from Highlander alongside, you know, a street thug that you made with the Everyday Hero system. And while they're not going to be the same, I mean, the immortal warrior can get stabbed through the chest and then get back up later. In combat, they're really pretty balanced with each other, right? Like the whole idea is that you can mix and match. It's a giant toolbox that you can do anything you want with. And all my game systems are designed to be modular so that for the most part, other than the very core of the system, you can kind of take or leave the parts that you like or you don't like. And people on our Discord are like, hey, do you think I could change this rule this way because I like this? And I'm like, yeah, I give you my official blessing as the game designer. You can do anything you like, right? It's your table, your game. I just provide you all the tools and my design expertise, such as it is, to make it easy for you if you want to use my stuff. But as a game designer, I totally encourage people to homebrew and create new ideas and add on to the system, because that's what it's for. It's meant to be that way.
When I came on board and got immersed in the EDH concept and, you know, throwing all these cinematic adventures at my head, it's like, learn the stuff. I was thoroughly impressed with the fact that each one of these cinematic adventures, you know, so the Everyday Heroes, EDH is the core central, you know, the hub of what you're playing with. And each of these cinematic adventure books, they do a cool thing about putting in the flavor and putting in some history and putting in the canon stuff. But each one also has a gimmick to it in its own capacity, like this own thing that it brings to the rule set. Right. So that way, if somebody is like, you know, I don't really want to play Highlander, you know, I'm not a big Christopher Lambert fan. Ooh, you know, like, or you know, I hate Queen. No one should ever say that. Then if
banned from this channel, if you
say exactly, if that was the case, but then they're like, you know, yeah, but there's these really cool dueling mechanics that are in there. I would look at them and say, yeah, but you could totally play Escape from New York, and have the two gang leaders have a Michael Jackson Beat It video moment, where they're dueling. And everybody around them's having the rest of their fight. It doesn't have to always be you know, that stuff doesn't have to be used that way. Yeah. And that's something I think that the cinematic adventures collectively, and then some new stuff that has come out with, you know, most recently The Vault and some of our PDF releases. These things, they just add more flavor to an already awesome to foodie on everybody. They bring a bunch of cool ingredients to the table. We have made a very, very cool soup base, and we can make lots of very cool stuff with that. We're the ramen of RPGs.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
now the audience, you now know what we're talking about here. We're inviting you to write in questions. Some of the questions are coming in now. Keep asking questions because we'll just keep these guys talking for as long as we can. I'm a good demon. Honest. One of his first questions that came in was, "What is your favorite class to play as?" Now, again, these books. This isn't wizard, warriors, and clerics. You've got like office job. We've got engineer. We've got we have assassin. We have all those. We have some cool stuff. But when you get to write these games and design these games, do you actually get to play them, or do you have to play other people's games? Like when someone else is when it's not a game that you're designing yourself, you're building yourself. You have to play someone else from someone else on the team. How does that all work? How does the what's the creative process here? And what is your favorite class to play?
I never stop gaming. Whether I mean it's constant. My calendar is ridiculous. I do a bunch of like streaming work, and I play test for our own stuff, and I play test other people's stuff, and so I love basically as long as everybody's having a good time. I don't care what I'm playing. And as far as playing our own things, I have a group of locals who they all know that if I'm probably running something, they're probably going to be playtesting things. They might not realize it, but they'll realize it pretty quick. They'll be like, I don't think I've seen this in a book. Well, you might soon. But yeah, no, I just never, if my schedule allows for it, I will give anything a go and throw some dice and play some cards or whatever the situation needs.
They all have to be my favorite in a way. Anyone that I work on, right? Like that's one of my other design philosophies is everything must be awesome, right? Like
well, exactly. You don't have a character class which is weak, or you don't enjoy playing. You have to have, because a lot of the time we don't. We used to say to players, okay, you pick your character and then run with it. But I've really got into having not necessarily pre-gens, but just pick a random class and then make. So that way you don't have to make that decision. Or I'll go to my go-to favorite. Pick something you might be a little bit uncomfortable with. That if you're not a computer geek, be the hacker, because that could be an interesting roleplay situation. What's Control Delete? I don't know.
And I'll say, one of my player advice things, and I think this is somewhere in the book. There's so many things in there. I recommend people find out what adventure they're playing in before they make a character. Yeah. It's always best if you know, hey, this is going to be a heist adventure. So make a character that's fun for a heist, right? Mm-hmm. It's just going to be better that way generally. Now you could get some hilarious situations. Had a kid want to play a troll slayer in a Warhammer game where they were infiltrating a goblin camp, and that didn't really work so well. Right? Like, it made for some hilarious moments, but yeah. So I recommend that. The class that I have not gotten to personally play test that I'm really interested in is the Hunter, which is a pet class. And, I designed these specific companion rules to be able to balance any kind of pet-based class. And so I really want to try the Hunter out sometime. I haven't been able to do that yet. It took a long time to design that character. So I really want to put it through its paces. But I've watched other people do it and greatly enjoyed it. My icon is usually my favorite just because I like to ham it up, right? So, and the icon is this like too cool for school, Johnny Cage / embodiment of, I don't know, any actor that you can think of, Robert Downey Jr. or something, right? So I love playing characters like that, where I get to do a lot of dialoguing, and so that's a fun one for me. Icon's kind of jazzy. And their abilities are all like, hey, watch this, or the perfect moment, and then they get to just do a critical. And I was like, you know what? This shot's a critical. Here it comes, baby, because I'm just cool like that. So yeah, it's not like the most powerful character in our roster by any stretch, but it's the silliest and the most fun.
It reminds me when
the best.
When you say too cool, there is some artwork in the core rule book of a guy bursting through a door with a gun. He's fired the gun, and there's two guys. There's two hands turning the keys, but he shoots the keys. just before they can like launch the missile. It's like James Bond, that pew. That's as you say, two cool movements like that. Or to get these cinematic moments in a game is always there's memorable things, because we've again, me and Steve, we play games for so many years, like you guys have, and you don't remember every single minute of every single game, or even just like the process, but you remember those moments, which is great.
Definitely.
Yeah, we try to name powers and abilities in ways like the name of something is very important to us. So, it's not just like extra attack.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no, we're not going to call it that. We're going to call it something cool, like, supreme devastation. Now we're talking, right? Like, so we try to use little movie quotes and Easter eggs and things, it lets you know what it does, but it does it in a stylish way. And that just, it makes playing those characters a little more fun. And it was really gratifying when I watched early live plays that people were doing. And clearly the players were reading the name of the ability. And sometimes they were doing something that is not exactly what the ability says. And that's okay. But they get to do the thing that's described. And the game masters and the players could kind of riff on that. And if they're doing that, I'm like, yes, it's my job. So, it gives me great pleasure.
It's also kind of cool just to sit there and go, I want to, I forget what the engineer's one is, like the master plan or something like that. Thump your fist down on time. I'm gonna enact the master plan, rather than, as you say, just go, I'm gonna extra attack, or I'm gonna cast skill, or something like that. So giving it a cool name, it makes it memorable. It gives you more of those memorable moments. I did have a question on the classes. How did you come up with that roster in the first place? Was that something that you'd absorbed from D&D Modern, or was there a lot of unique elements put into that?
So D20 Modern has the strong, agile, tough, smart, wise, charismatic. I forget what they call those heroes, but that's the first thing. We wanted that idea, right? That there's a baseline. So we call those archetypes. And basically an archetype leans into one of those ability scores. And it's also nice mechanically, because someone's making a character like, well, I'm a strong hero. Maybe I should have a decent strength score. Yeah. And the archetype is designed to reward you. Your defense is based on your strength score, and your offense is based on your strength score. So it's really easy to make a character and kind of hard to mess it up, right? So long as you have that ability score, you're probably fine. And then the classes are based on that archetype, things that lead into strength, characters that lead into dexterity, but the classes are specializations. They're like, I'm good at shooting guns. I'm a master with my agile fists, whatever it happens to be. And so we made those 6 archetypes, and then we said, okay, well, about how many classes are we going to have for each one? 3. Great, let's fill out the list. And you start with movie roster characters. Jackie Chan. Okay, we need a martial artist, right? Sniper. Got to have some guy who's a sniper, right? We got to have a big tough guy. Okay, great. That's the brawler. And you go down that list, and sometimes it's tough. Like, it was kind of hard, actually, to come up with modern action heroes that lean into strength after you get, okay, the big tough guy that smacks, people around. Okay, who else, right? Well, we're like, how about a strong person that shoots guns? So like Arnold from Predator, right? He's got a big heavy gun. Okay, great. Like, we'll do that character. So you just go through and you just fill it out, right? And you're like, I want to cover as many archetypes as possible. Yeah. Dave would challenge me by sending me movie characters. He's like, make this character, right? And that's how we got the Raised by Assassins background. He sent me a list. It was like 6 femme fatales. And when I looked up these characters, they were all trained by Russian assassins as children, right? And I'm like, well, I don't have anything to simulate that in the game. So Raised by Assassins background, right? It stands out a little above the others. They're a little more generic. That one's like, whoa, that's very specific. But it came because Dave is like, I have to make these characters in the game, and I don't think I can. And I'm like, okay, well, now you can. And
we have some artwork from the books as well. This is kind of one of like the typical pages of what we've got. So there you go. There's the brawler, the martial artist, just to give you kind of a little bit of visual flavor there.
Yep. And I tried to make different classes, some that are very simple and direct, like the martial artist. You punch people a lot, or kick people, or headbutt them, or whatever you want to do, right? Yep. But you use your body to beat them up, and you get to do it often. And that's the martial artist, right? There's a little bit more to it than that, but it's very simple and direct. There's other classes like the mastermind genius hero, and they have all these complicated plans that they can act, like you know, when somebody takes a drink of water, you go, ha, I had it poisoned. You see, I have a maid who's under contract and she works for you in the evenings. You never pay attention to her. And, you know, she snuck in and poisoned your glass last Tuesday because I knew this day would come and I have the antidote, right? So, you know, there's very simple characters and then there's complex characters that really challenge the player to do a lot of storytelling, or tactically complex characters like the hunter, who has a pet that can take actions and he can shoot things and he can mark people and coordinate with his animal companion and stuff. So I wanted this variety of mechanics as well as a variety of concepts, so that some characters people could just pick up and play. They don't need to really understand all the little game minutia. And other characters people can get into the weeds and multi-class and do crazy things and have a grand old time theory crafting, right? Because I love to do both of those things. Yeah. So I want all that in the game.
So I'm going to go back to something that Dave said earlier about the way the book's laid out and being able to take that information in. One of my favourite parts of the book is that table of classes that's got simple, medium, and complex against it. Because if you're coming to the game and you know it's a big old book, and sometimes that can be a little bit off-putting. Something like that as a new player is great. You look at it, you're like, okay, I'm just going to ease myself in gently. I'll pick one of the simple classes. That was such a really unique thing I've not seen in any other rule book before. It was really good, really good.
Yeah, common in video games, which is where I got the idea from.
Yeah.
I like to play a lot of video games too, and it's a thing that, you know, complex MMOs, they tell you up front sometimes, you know, about how complex the character is. So that's where I got the idea from, and I was like, yeah, why isn't this in role-playing books? It's going to be mine. So
okay, we've got another question here. This is from the D&D Gremlin. What do you think is the greatest strength of Everyday Heroes rule set plus the add-on books compared to other TTRPG systems? Good question.
What do you think, Bryan?
Well, I was going to say, I've worked with a bunch of different systems and I've designed a few. I think the greatest strength of Everyday Heroes is, so it is familiar to the people who are familiar, like who's, you know, in 5e already. There are a lot of the terminologies, you're going to pick up on that stuff really, really fast. But it is adjacent and different enough that there is so many other things, because there's things that 5e just doesn't do well. We know that, and that's not a knock on the system. That's literally just, you know, sometimes you don't play checkers with chess. You know, it just doesn't work that way. And I think that Sig and Chris did such a great job of making the Everyday Heroes core system flexible. It's set. You know what it's doing. Like, you know this is, it says it does what it says on the tin. Like this is it. But all it takes is one page little addition or 2 or 3 pages, and now you've got a completely other animal that you can bring to your table. So I think its greatest strength is that it's extremely malleable without losing what the core system is supposed to do.
Yeah, and I'll agree with that. I don't want to say, well, it's way better than this system for this.
We can.
Because, I respect every game system. Like every game system's got its goals, right? And it's a question of whether you meet those goals. Our goal was to make a game for the modern world that could be adapted to any genre outside of fantasy. And it could be adapted to fantasy too. It comes from D&D, right? But and so that was a clear design goal, and I hope I hit that. Maybe and Goober as well is a big part of that. Hit that goal better than some other systems might have. I mean, we're going to try to be the best, but I don't ever want to claim that we are, right? Because I don't know. I haven't read everybody else's games. I can't. There's so many, and many of them are wonderful, right? So, but yeah, like we tried really hard to make a game that is malleable and flexible and could be transformed into a game and go. Our core rule system is the same as in Dungeons and Dragons, but when you play Everyday Heroes, it does not feel like Dungeons and Dragons.
Exactly.
For the most part, right? Yep. Because even though it is the same mechanic, we have dressed it up in ways that feel different. And the ability to swap those parts in and out and give it a different feel is a big part of the design goal.
It's nice. It is that comfortable as well when you mentioned that. So we're coming down to the last 15 minutes, everybody. So for those of you who are joining us live, thank you very much. Keep those questions coming. We will run out of time in a little bit, so get them fast. But I wanted to cover onto a different topic. We're going to have a little bit of a slight announcement. So one of the things that Evil Genius are going to be doing with Band of Badgers, of course, because that's what it's all about, is we will be running a brand new campaign. Now, this campaign is going to be starting in February. Sigfried has already graciously been volunteered. He said yes, so I'm glad he did. Otherwise, I have to change all the dates. But we will be running a campaign. I get to play. So does Steve. We get to play in the same campaign, and we will be.
It's going to go horribly.
It will go horribly wrong. We will throw each other over the boat.
Well, the last time we played together, I killed you, so you definitely be looking out for revenge.
I will be. But me and Sig will talk about that. Not in front of you, Steve. We'll have a private conversation about that one. But we will be playing Kong. We want to go to Skull Island. We're going to go on a little adventure, and we're going to be playing this for the next few weeks, or a couple of months. I don't know. I don't know how long this might take. But it's going to be a fortnightly campaign. It's going to launch on Thursdays, starting in February. Now, here's the good news for those of you who have joined us live and listening. We have 2, maybe 1 spot left. So we don't have all the player seats. So if you would like to join us and you've never played Everyday Heroes, you certainly never played Kong before, get in touch and we will put you in the running. We'll pull a name out the hat and the lucky winner will be joining us on Skull Island. And that's no lie. You're going to go to Skull Island, not the real one. You're going to go to Skull Island with us and we're going to play some stuff. It's really cool. So we're
there's so many fun ways to die on Skull Island, so I highly recommend it.
I mean, all the ways, really.
All the ways. Yeah. It's waiting to kill you.
And I've been watching again all the Kong films. I've been watching Godzilla, I've been watching Monarch as well. So I think it's a fantastic time to actually run a Kong game. And the bit that terrifies me, I'm not a fan of spiders. As anyone who's a regular watcher of Band of Badgers knows, I don't like spiders particularly much. There are some big ass spiders on Skull Island. I watched the John Goodman Samuel Jackson film again recently, and I completely blanked out those spiders in the tree spiders with the long legs. That freaked me out completely. The
mother long legs, those are called.
Yes, they are. And
they are creepy as hell.
Stat blocks are in the book as well. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So I get to play, I get to roll some dice. If you'd like to roll some dice with us, come and join us. David's promised that win a holiday. Yeah,
it's a one-way trip to Skull Island.
Yeah, well, you never come back. Very few people come back. Just get a waterproof bag and throw it into the water. You'll be fine. But it extends your life. It does do that. Maybe.
There are many wonders to discover as well.
Many.
The lure of Skull Island is strong.
Here's a question: when you get to work on these licenses, do they give you any extra information, behind the scenes information, or do you just work from the films? You work from your own knowledge?
No, absolutely. We get a lot of information from the studios. We also get a lot of guidelines from the studios, things that they might not have set in stone yet, but they say, hey, we might, so don't mess with that. It's a very cool process. Sometimes stressful, we'll say. That's a kind way of saying it. But overall, it is so much fun to be able to bounce, being in meetings with people, the people who literally make the movies, and they go, oh, that's a really great idea. And seeing the sparks that go behind their eyes, that you're like, I hope maybe that shows up sometime. That'd be awesome. These are some of the things that we get to do. And they have some input, but it's more along the lines of they put up some really cool guardrails for us to not venture into areas that we shouldn't, or, sometimes it's just a gentle nudge. They'll be like, hey, this needs to be not so furry. I don't know. I'm using a random idea, but we might send them a piece of art for something and they go, man, that's a cool creature. Can you make it not that color? And
Yeah, that's okay.
and it's but so yeah, we get to work hand in hand with them, and they give us as much information as they're allowed to, and I suppose as much as we need. We would love to have more, obviously, but for the most part. But it's a very interesting partnership, and each company that we work with, each production house is different. We have some of the licensees are that they might their guidelines might be a couple of bullet points that say don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, go have fun. And then there's others that will give us giant piles of, this is the the license information, read it, love it, don't stray from it. And it might be 60, 70, 80 pages long. So it just depends on place to place, or people to people, license to license.
Yeah, like Legendary gives us a lot of information. We got a world Bible and a bunch of details, and they're sticklers for the details in their films because they're ongoing franchises, right? So it makes a lot of sense. Escape from New York, I received nothing, and they said everything that I did was great. So I think there was one note that I had misspelled a character's name wrong somewhere, right? So yeah, it varies wildly depending on the property. The more recent it is, the more active it is, the more feedback guidelines you're going to have to follow. The older it is, the more obscure it is, the less wrangling. Because often, the license holder just has that license, and they, they're happy to make some money off of it, and that's all there is to it. But there are exceptions to that. Highlander got a lot of feedback. Definitely Universal Soldier, not so much. So it kind of depends.
Which you prefer?
They're both pretty good. I always stay true to the world, no matter what, right? Like, so I will go research the heck out of whatever wiki. Bless the wikis of the world. You guys who maintain wikis, you are saints and wonderful folks. Those are incredibly helpful to me. But I cross-reference and check everything. For Escape from New York, I had to go dig up an out-of-print novelization of the movie. And, there's a lot of research you end up doing to just try and make sure that whatever guidelines you've got, that you are following the world and what's been out there. And sometimes you're like, hey, look, this comic book completely contradicts everything that this thing says. And so you got to decide which canon you're going with, right? And so I go with the one I like, unless I have guidance from the studio, right? Sometimes the studio will be like, yeah, no, like they all agree with each other, and you're like, no, they really don't.
That's not okay. Yeah, no. Yeah.
What is if I'm assuming you can't say, but what can we tease? What's coming up in this year? What's for 2024? We know it's some new books. Any more movie licenses coming out that you guys are currently working on that you can tease?
Wow.
I don't think we can tease movie licenses exactly.
Could you ballpark which genre it's in?
Well, I have some sci-fi plans.
Right.
Cool.
Now we can spend the next 5 minutes until the stream ends guessing what that might be.
Yeah, well, I could go we could maybe do genres. Comedy, science fiction, procedural crime, organized crime. I'm trying to think of another one.
I'm trying to see how you'd say this without
crazy action. Some of them I don't know how to categorize, right? So, yeah, the thing is though, we never really want to say the name, because until you sign the paper and like have the deal, it's ephemeral. It could vanish in an instant. Like everyone could be in agreement, and then something changes and it's gone. And then you got to tell the fans, yeah, I know you're really excited about it, but
it didn't quite happen.
So it's really tough. You have to kind of get ink on paper, and then we can talk about it.
I can say one thing for certain, that this year we're going to really flex our muscles, putting out some of our own content that's not necessarily licensed stuff. That you will, similar to the concept when you're looking through the EDH core book, where you can go, oh, that's Pam Grier, oh, okay, I get that's Jackie Chan. We're going to put out some more stuff that is very iconic in its own right. We recently put out, I'm gonna pimp my own stuff. That's fine. We recently put out the first 3 of the agency files. which builds off of the trope of government agents wearing particular suits and sunglasses and dealing with aliens. But hey, ours looks different. But we want to more things like that, where we get to look at something iconic, look at something cool, and even if we can't make it official, make it canon, make it a thing, we can give the player base and the game masters out there something that they could then run it themselves. They can make that their own thing using some really cool rules that are put down, and to make it as official as possible for Everyday Heroes.
Yeah.
So there's more of that.
Yeah, I'll pimp a few things. So we got the Ego program that's going to launch on January 24th. That's our organized play. And so that's a big program for people who want to do organized play, have persistent characters. It's got a wacky semi-comedy action tone to it. The adventures do. So all the heroes are working for a mysterious agency called Redemption, and they're working out of the Nacho House restaurant chain. And it's tongue-in-cheek and kind of silly, fun stuff. Kind of Get Smart almost, I would think of it, but for the modern day.
Yep.
Anyway, so that's launching. There's going to be an app on the phone to help find games, so you can match up with other game masters, find players, and organize your organized play and get your games together, and a whole series of adventures that has an ongoing story arc with little episodes that are coming out. So that's really cool. Michael is our organized play director, and he's putting all that together, and it's very exciting. I was just looking at one of the adventures last night, so they're good fun. Also, I'm working on Military Heroes, which is going to be hardcore tactical play. So, if you've played Rainbow Six or XCOM or one of these hardcore tactical games.
It reminds me of Counter-Strike, just playing Counter-Strike.
Yeah, that's the idea behind that game. So a lot of really country rules, and also a lot of details about real-world special forces operations. So if you want your game to have that feel, it's got a whole bunch of stuff like injury systems and tracking your ammunition and what type of ammunition you have, and goes into great detail in that realm. We're also working on Everyday Arcana, which is an urban fantasy game. It's like a toolbox for doing, Bright or Netrunner-y stuff, or anything. Well, I guess Netrunner not really, but anything where you're mixing magic and the modern world together. That could include vampires and werewolves. It could be wizards, detectives, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a big source book game for that, kind of standing on its own instead of an expansion book. So I'm doing game design for that piece of work. That's been highly requested by our fans. So it's been something in the works for a long time. We don't know exactly when that's coming out, but we're working on it. And got an eye towards it. It's cool stuff.
The wheels grind forward.
Always.
Yeah. We're always working on things. It's hard to say, this will come out then, and this, A small company, there's a lot of variables, so we try not to say until we're ready to say.
One of the questions that came up earlier is, what do you think would not make a good movie franchise TTRPG? One of the things that popped in my head was Romancing the Stone.
Oh no, you could absolutely make it decent. Yeah, you could.
I know it's got locations and waterfalls and
good locations, small party of 2 or 3 people. You wouldn't make it a giant thing.
Yeah, but it could be a co-op. It could be a 2-player game.
Yeah, you could absolutely.
For couples. Yeah.
You could totally do it.
A friend of mine was in the sequel to that game, the Jugglers, the Flying Karamazov brothers. But strange fact. So I have a special connection to Romancing the Stone. The worst one that I've thought of, because our fans love to suggest movies, and some of them I feel like they're just trying to torture me. Eraserhead. I have no idea how I'm making Eraserhead the RPG. I cannot do it. That's a bridge too far. So
yeah,
which would be a good one.
A bridge too far. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would be good. Yes. Yeah, there's a lot. Sometimes Dave's been like, I don't see how you're going to make an RPG out of that, and I'm like, I'll figure it out. I can do it. Like, so long as it's got people in dilemmas and there's some kind of conflict happening, right? I can handle it. If there's no conflict, it's a little tough. But even something like Jane Austen, like if you listen to the dialogue, There's a lot of conflict going on. There's challenging. People are vying for things, trying to achieve goals with one another. So long as you have that element, you can make a game out of it.
And I can't speak for Sig, but I know as a designer, when somebody does throw something down, like throws that gauntlet of, I bet you couldn't make this fun. And you're like, oh, really? Well, all right, here we go. Time to gamify a tea party, because that's going to happen.
Kindergarten Cop.
Oh
my God. No, that'd be great. That
would be really fun.
That'd be really fantastic, because most of the players you'd have them play the toddlers. You'd have them play. It would be a for kids style game where the game master is actually the teacher and the players play the kids. Oh yeah, no, that'd be great, amazing.
And you're talking earlier about organized crime. Just go full out with that concept and go Bugsy Malone.
But
I totally want to do a book that has rules
for
for building an organization. Like the players are part of an organization,
right,
and their missions build up the resources of the organization and its status. And so you get that politics dynamic that they're not only going out to commit crimes to get money, but they're building their reputation and their power within the structure. I'd love to do that. It'd be super fun.
We got one last comment there.
Oh, Dick Tracy would be great. Star Drew, you are speaking to my love back there.
Rocketeer,
Rocketeer.
Yeah, be a good one. And what's the other one? Dark Man with Liam Neeson.
Oh, Dark Man.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking older. I was going Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon would be a good one. Yeah,
that'd be very, very good.
Well, one of the challenges is our core rulebook does cover a lot of territory. So sometimes we'll get a game like Rambo that's pretty close to, you could just play it with the core rules, to be honest, right? And so we do have to do some heavy thinking about, like, what can we add? What details can we get into? And so, we get, rules for mowing down endless hordes of enemies, right? So like one hit point enemies and traps, go into more detail for that, and fortifications and military life. So, we always find something. There's something in the source material that we can add elements to. But you have to dig a little harder when you've already covered the ground pretty well.
The movie Mean Guns, or Way of the Gun.
Way of the Gun. Is that Ryan Phillippe and Benicio del Toro?
Ooh. I don't know. Sure. I don't recognize it. Lawnmower Man, Matrix we mentioned before, Lawnmower Man.
Yeah, cyberpunk stuff would be cool. We haven't done like a cyberspace thing yet, where you're doing a lot of virtual reality conflict.
That would
be
all right.
Cool. There you go.
Thank you, LMP.
There's always that 10-second delay. So ask a question.
I can't say it online, but it's got one of the best quotes of all time.
We,
his tongue
for the core rule book, you'll find Easter eggs from so many different films and action movies. Like Equilibrium is kind of an obscure movie that was an inspiration for the 2-weapon gunfighting. I was
gun fu.
Right. Yeah, that was interesting. I did a lot of research on what do you call that? What's the most common term for fighting with two pistols? Because you don't really do it in real life. It's a movie thing, but of course it has to be in the game because it's an action movie game. So we spent a long time trying to figure out what to call that, because there are many different movies that have their own name for it.
Yeah. That's cool. Right, we are out of time. Thank you very much, folks, for joining us live. Those of you who have, thank you very much. If you're watching this on YouTube, remember to like, subscribe, and click all the buttons. I don't know what they will do, just click all the buttons. It must do something positive somewhere for someone. But please do share, like, and do all those bits and pieces. Now, guys, thank you very much. Sigfried, Trent, you can put up. There you go. We've just need to push buttons. Sigfried, Trent.
Yeah.
No.
That one.
Not that one. Sigfried, Trent. The man who it's like a superhero name, Bryan Steele. It's the man, the myth. What a fantastic. Does everyone say that to you, or is it just me?
I have heard it a few different times, but I'm a giant. If you can't tell, I'm a giant comic book nerd, so I absolutely adore it every time I hear it. So
fantastic.
I get a lot of, is that really your name, or is that like a pen name? It's like, nope, that's been me since birth.
It's been hi, my name is Bryan Steele.
Bryan Steele.
Fantastic. Anyway, we're going to leave you with the Everyday Heroes trailer, and then we're going to call it a night. So we'll see you there, guys. See you next time. Thank you for joining us live, and goodbye. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll chat to you after we've gone off air. But anyway,
I want to hear this movie quote.
Yeah. We'll post it. We'll put it on the YouTube bit descriptions. Right. See you all. Be good. Bye-bye.
Get ready for the most action-packed role-playing game of the modern era. Inspired by your favorite action movies, Everyday Heroes makes you the star of your own pulse-pounding adventure. Leap out of windows, get in a car chase, and save the world at the last second, all while looking damn good doing it. Created by some of the original designers of D20 Modern, Everyday Heroes provides everything you need to run a modern-day campaign with a 5e compatible, easy-to-learn rule set. The core rulebook comes equipped with a host of modern character options. Get up close and personal with the MMA fighter, break into the system with the hacker, or uncover any mystery with the sleuth. With 20 classes, 25 backgrounds, and 30 professions, Everyday Heroes gives you the tools to create your own unique action hero. But that's not all. Everyday Heroes gives GMs a toolbox bursting with options, with custom rules for car chases and gunfights, along with an armory of equipment and an updated wealth system that breaks away from counting every coin. The best part is that Everyday Heroes can be played in almost any genre, from horror to sci-fi and everything in between. And later this year, Everyday Heroes will be releasing cinematic adventures based on your favorite films, with custom rules, new classes, and adventures for each one. So what are you waiting for?